Then cold talons gripped their throats when they heard Jeremy's voice through the wall. Kevin? The other boys looked at Jeremy, holding their Winchesters pointed at nothing, away from the children. Kevin's best friend cleared his throat and said in a wavering voice, "We had to come here, okay? We don't want to be here. We're behind you 100%. Let's just get that out of the way." Griggs then spoke up. "Nobody knows you're here. They only know your phones are here. But that doesn't mean anything. What I'm thinking, it's all a big misunderstanding. You threw your phones away back at the promenade because you knew they were giving away your location. These kids here," he indicated the terrified children at the dinner table, "found your phones on the ground and brought them home. If I can get those phones and take them outside to the commandant, that can explain why they led us here, and we'll leave." There was a pregnant pause, so quiet that all anyone could hear was the ringing in their ears, while everyone debated whether this was a trick to get them to admit the boys were there. If they all just kept quiet and called their bluff, the bad guys would leave. Or maybe there was some truth to it. Maybe the peacekeepers really were on their side. But how to slip the phones out where they could be seen without giving away the hiding place? And how could they delete all their stuff so they didn't let any important info fall into the state's hands? And what would they do without their phones? That was the biggest reason not to do it. They wouldn't have their phones. "Clock's ticking, guys," Griggs said. "Come on, Kevin," Jeremy insisted. "If we don't walk out of here with the phones, they're going to know something's up." "It's a trick," Danny whispered. "They can't really see our phones. They just want us to give ourselves up." "How did they know to come here then?" Kevin asked. "I bet they're going to every house saying the same thing." "There's a lot of houses between the park and here. They didn't go to all of them first. They started with this one. I just don't trust them. I've known them my whole life." "Yeah, and you're the enemy." Feeling the immense pressure of his family's lives in his hands, Hushman called out, "I think I saw 2 phones in the broom closet," telling them as plainly as he could to throw the stupid phones down the passageway to the secret door where they could find them. Kevin quietly stepped sideways toward the exit, and Danny reached out to grab his sash, clinking his metals together. Kevin tried to pull himself away, and Danny squeezed tighter, trying to hold him still. The scuffing of their shoes in the dust on the floor was the loudest sound they'd ever heard, and that made them pull against one another more desperately until they slipped and bumped the drywall. All eyes outside went to the sound, and their hearts sank as they heard the quiet struggle. "Must be rats," Hushman said, knowing no one believed him, knowing he was doomed. "They'll kill us, goddammit," Danny hissed, his voice coming through the wall, and Esmeralda withered, leaning back heavily to sit on the corner of the dining table, and made all the drinking glasses wobble. Glancing at the sliding glass door that led to the backyard, Griggs saw the peacekeepers getting ready to enter. He went gingerly up to the wall that was rattling and knocked on it. The boys inside froze, and Griggs kept knocking, not as if on the door, hoping someone would answer, but to find where the 2x4 studs were, 16 inches on center. When he was sure that he wouldn't hit a stud and hoped he wouldn't crack one of the boys in the head, he wound back his rifle and slammed the butt of it through the drywall. The boys inside flinched, scrunching their eyes shut against the dust and gravel. Outside, a peacekeeper was reaching for the door. Blinking, Danny saw a hand reach in through the hole in the wall, like Professor Nightingale reaching into the car for the gun earlier, and the fingers snapped twice, the palm then lying flat, expectantly. He blinked some more and jostled Kevin's arm to make him look. Kevin's face was gray with dust, and he grimaced and spat, then looked and froze. The sliding glass door was locked. The peacekeeper looked over his shoulder at the others, standing bathed in white light, and they gestured to, "Yeah, go ahead." He turned back to the glass, rounded his shoulders, and two-handed his rainbow-colored AR-15. Hushman hurried over to the door, frantically waving his hands. No, wait! He pantomimed the lock of the door being broken and it being a pain in the neck to open it, but no, don't break it. They looked at him, squinting, barely able to see him past their own reflections. The one who was going to bash his way in set his rifle down, cupped his hands around his eyes, and leaned in to peer through the glass. "Give," Griggs said through his teeth, "me the phones." Danny finally understood. If they were going to be shot, they'd have been shot already. He frantically dug his hand into his jeans pocket, wincing as dust stung his eyes. Kevin did the same, fumbling and dropping his with a clatter. He tried to squat and reach for it, but bumped his head on the corner of a 2x4. Hushman mimed that the door couldn't open, but all the peacekeeper could see was a man closer than he should have been, making threatening movements that might have been going for a gun. He dropped to the patio and rolled out of the way, shouting, "Fire! Fire! Fire!" The other peacekeepers scrambled to aim at their reflections, and Hushman gave up his pretense of the door being stuck. He unlocked it loudly and snatched it open, sliding the door a foot to the left, and stuck out his head. "Don't shoot, it's okay!" The peacekeepers hesitated, and Hushman went on. "It's just a tricky door. It doesn't open sometimes, but don't shoot. I'm going to open it all the way, okay? Hold your fire." But at the same time, the 4 boys of the firing squad reacted to guns pointed at them and ducked out of the way, leaving Esmeralda and the children in the line of fire. Hushman pushed the door all the way open, praying that the boys in the hall had already given up their phones. Outside, the peacekeepers kept their weapons pointed at Hushman, watching their reflections slide away and the interior of the house unfold before them. Maybe they had itchy trigger fingers from a need to redeem themselves for what happened earlier at the wall. It took a moment to accustom their eyes to the dimmer yellow light, and when they could see clearly, they saw the 4 scouts peeking at them from behind furniture. "Hey, look! Freeze!" Griggs yanked his hand back out the wall and crouched, going for his sidearm, not knowing what the yelling was about. And that was the moment Commandant Bell threw open the front door and stormed in, about to demand, "Well, what's the holdup?" when Kevin craned his neck to look through the hole in the wall and locked eyes with her. Bell leered in triumph as she pointed a long-nailed orange finger at Kevin, screaming, "There he is! Shoot him!" And the peacekeepers opened fire. The deafening shatter of gunshots shattered the night. Splinters and shards of glass exploded from the dining table and the windows behind it as Esmeralda and the children threw up their arms and fell, twisting in midair. Hushman screamed and was torn apart by a hail of bullets that lifted him up off his feet and onto the coffee table, flattening it. Plaster dust spat out of the suddenly pockmarked walls, and empty chairs bucked and splintered and danced before collapsing. Holes burst in the fabric of the couch and armchairs, spitting wisps of cotton batting as the scouts hiding behind it fell sprawling. And above it all rang out the shrill scream of Commandant Bell, hunched over in the corner of the kitchen with her hands covering her ears. Kevin cowered in the dust and shadows of the passageway, horrified, but Danny risked everything in a desperate kick through the sheetrock and battered his way through it. When he saw that the peacekeepers couldn't see him at that angle, but would as soon as they took a few steps inside, he grabbed Kevin by his metal-bedecked sash and hauled him up and out of the wall. Shaniqua was still hiding her face behind her long-nailed hands and screaming, but they didn't have time to waste trying to fight her. They ran past her through the garage door, Kevin grabbing a car key off the hook on his way out. Popping the trunk with the key fob, he saw the dim light come on, and Stingray shuffled his way toward it so he wouldn't trip over anything in the dark. Inside, he found his Winchester and was about to make his way back into the house to avenge the Nightingales when Danny raised the garage door 2 feet up off the ground. "Come on," he hissed. "Let's go." "No, we have them surrounded," Kevin said. "Are you out of your freaking mind? Vamos!" Kevin hesitated, so Danny dropped and rolled under the door. Kevin was about to follow, but when he ducked down, he saw the SUV parked outside. Glancing back into the dim light leaking in from the streetlights, he saw the washing machine and dryer and had an idea. Danny slipped through the rhododendrons on the side of the driveway and bounced a little with impatience. The gunfire had not let up, and neither had the screaming. Holes were still punching out of the glass of windows on the front of the house, and shards tinkled on the pavement. "What the hell are you doing?" Danny asked through his teeth, staring at the conspicuously open garage door through the swaying leaves. He suddenly felt the stares of 100 eyes at the windows of houses up and down the street, noses pressed to the glass, squinting through the fog of their breath. Griggs gaped in horror at the massacre in the dining room, and would wish later that his eyes might have blurred with tears to spare him the sight. From around the corner of the fridge he heard the peacekeepers chuckle. "You think we got him?" Griggs felt himself begin to choke, and when his eyes settled on Esmeralda lying at an impossible angle, he wanted to kill them all, everyone with a stupid rainbow gun and Love Brigade uniform, finishing with Commandant Bell, standing over her and making her look up at him before blasting her to hell where she belonged. But his gun felt so heavy. He'd never held anything so heavy in his life, and he knew if he tried to shoot anyone, he'd miss and miss and miss until he was empty, and they'd blow him away to kingdom come. No, he thought, when he remembered the big hole in the drywall beside him, he'd kill the two idiots whose fault this was. Danny sighed with relief when Kevin rolled out from under the garage door once again, but caught his breath when he watched him run toward the SUV instead of him in the bushes, thinking, now what? It made him pull his head down into his shoulders like a turtle, feeling the immense malignant weight of the house dragging him into it, like that guy in Jaws sliding down the boat into the shark's mouth. The bad guys were going to come into the garage looking for him and see the door open, and Kevin probably didn't have enough bullets in the Winchester for them all. Probably just enough to attract their attention and help them with their aim. "Ooh, what do we have here?" the peacekeepers said to Jeremy when they found him cowering behind a sofa. "Thinking he's going to snipe us, it looks like." "Looks like? You dropped your rifle, though, Ludmilla." "Ha ha, he sure did." "Hey!" Griggs snapped. "Leave him alone! You idiots shot all the wrong people!" "What? Hey, you told us to shoot." "Nobody told you to do anything." "We heard." "You didn't hear, you just started shooting, and because of it, the kids who we were looking for got away." "What?" "They went through that door. Follow them." The peacekeepers looked at each other and down at all the innocent people they had murdered, now that the joy of killing had worn off. They looked nauseous. "Go!" shouted Griggs, and they jumped, hurrying into the kitchen and through the door into the garage. He was looking down at Jeremy, the only one of the firing squad left alive, and he was vaguely aware of Commandant Bell slowly walking past him toward Hushman's, or rather, Professor Nightingale's, body. He held out a hand for the trembling young man to notice. Commandant Bell stood triumphantly over the man she had hated and smiled with smug satisfaction. Griggs wanted to shoot her so badly, but feared for every bullet he fired would be absorbed harmlessly into her bulk and dissolve somehow while she called those morons back inside to execute him. Jeremy hesitated, then reached up and accepted the hand that Griggs offered. He let himself be helped to his feet, and then felt the man's arms go around him in what was supposed to be a comforting embrace, but instead felt like the coils of a python. He stiffened, but, Griggs thought, that was to be expected. Gotta make him feel like I'm his big brother during this rough time.